Hello Whovians, and welcome to my latest Doctor Who review, where today I review the sixth and final story in season 16 of Doctor Who, which is also Mary Tamm's final story as Romana. Sad. The Armageddon Factor, starring Tom Baker as the fourth Doctor. Okay, the Armageddon Factor. This is the final story in Tom Baker's fifth season, fifth out of 7 seasons. Still got 2 seasons to go, and of course it would see the departure of Mary Tamm as Romana, which is also good. But anyway, the basic plot of this particular story is as follows. The final segment of the Key to Time is at the heart of a devastating war between neighbouring planets Atrios and Zeos. The fourth Doctor discovers that a sinister entity is manipulating events, and the cost of obtaining the final segment may be more personal than he imagined. Okay, there we go. That's a brief synopsis of the Armageddon Factor. Okay, the Armageddon Factor. This is an interesting story. It's quite, I think, a historical story on a number of accounts. It's the end of season 16. It's the departure of Mary Tamm. But it's also the final story of the Key to Time story arc, which is interesting. Across season 16, we've had this running story arc where in each story, the Doctor and Romana have had to find a segment of the Key to Time and then piece it together in order to sort of bring balance to the universe. However, the end of the story doesn't transpire to go the way we think, as it turns out the Guardian himself is a deceitful liar. The bastard. So yeah, but I think the story is interesting. And as for the story itself, this particular story, the Armageddon Factor, I would say it was good. It was decent. I'm not going to say it's perfect. I'm not going to say it's a fantastic story, but it'll do. It's pretty good. It's entertaining. It's actually the last transmitted 6-part story ever in the show. So that's interesting. That's another reason which makes it historical. I know that there's the story Sharda, which is in the next season, but that story wasn't finished when it was being made. I mean, it's been finished now, but we'll get more into that when I do the review of Sharda. But this was the last 6-part story to be aired by the BBC when it was transmitted. So, yeah. And I think this is a good story. I like the central conflict between the two sides, and I think the war they're having is really interesting. But also, what is interesting about this story is the fact that it features Lalla Ward, who is going to be the second incarnation of Romana. She appears in this story in another supporting role, and unfortunately, Romana doesn't regenerate in this story, so we don't see her as the new Romana. But we see her as Princess Astra, who actually turns out to be the final piece of the Key to Time, which I thought was kind of interesting, and how the Doctor, in the end, has to decide that he can't trap a human being in that form forever. Like, she would turn into this sort of cubic form if she were to stay, and the Key to Time were still to be assembled. So he decides to scatter all the pieces off again and keep her alive. But Lalla Ward gives a good performance. She's very good, and I really like her in this story. I mean, of course, we'll see more of her in the next season as Romana 2, so I'll be talking more about her there. But I think her performance is pretty good, pretty solid in this story, and her love interest, Merak, I think his name is Merak, Ian Sainor, who's madly in love with her. He's constantly trying to get back to her. That's nice. There's a nice little romance there, bit of light relief. The supporting cast overall are very good. I think the Marshal, played by John Woodvine, is very good. Although he seems to be rather absent from the second half of the story until the end. We don't see him do an awful lot. And there is kind of the implication that he might be a villain and that he's being, someone is controlling him. But yeah, no, the Marshal was a good character, played by John Woodvine. I think he's very good. Of course, I cannot let this review pass without mentioning Drax. Yes, he is an old friend and colleague of the Doctor, who's a Time Lord, though he's been hanging around in Earth on London for quite some time, and he's picked up the Cockney accent. And he's quite an amusing character. Yeah, I quite liked him. He added a bit of light relief and levity to the story. The main villain of the story is this guy called the Shadow, who kind of wears a hood over his head and like a half skull mask, and you just see his mouth area. and he talks very much like this, and he's very creepy, and the key to time. In a way, he kind of reminds me of Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars. I mean, I know this story was aired before Star Wars: Return of the Jedi came out, but even so, it's just kind of funny to see that. I think, but I think the villains are decent in this story, and I think they do a good job for what they have. Also, the other cast member is Valentine Dial as the Guardian. He only appears at the very end, but his little cameo is nice. The main cast are also very good. John Leeson voices K9 once again. K9's back in the story. He does quite a lot in this story. He gets quite involved. There's even a point when K9 is corrupted and he's turned over to the bad side, which is kind of shocking to see. And there's even a section where K9 is about to go into a furnace, which is kind of drastic. Amazingly, the Doctor manages to get him out. Not quite sure how. That was a little unclear in the editing. I didn't quite understand how the Doctor got out of the furnace unscathed, and with K9 unscathed as well. So maybe they could have explained that a bit better, but nevertheless, whatever. And of course, Tom Baker is the Doctor. He gives a fine performance. Still fantastic in the part. Has great chemistry with Mary Tamm on screen. It's a delight to watch. Also, I apologise if you can hear any background noise. It's my fan. It's really hot today. I need some air. Like, normally I shut the windows and just close everything when I'm recording just for no background noise. But today, I need the fan. I'm sorry. It's just too hot. And, of course, Mary Tamm as Romana in her final performance. And I bid thee goodbye. Mary Tamm, I think she was a good companion. I think Romana's a great companion. She's a very beautiful lady, and it's very sad to know that she died of cancer in 2012. Thanks to my friend Jack McCullough for telling me that. Yeah, and I think she was a good companion. I think that she was the Doctor's equal, and I know Romana, technically the character is still there, but she obviously will regenerate. But that's one of my criticisms of the story, is that she doesn't really get an exit. Like, they don't give Romana a regeneration, and I thought that was a little bit unsatisfying. I just felt like the ending could have been that much more emotional. Like, Romana gets electrocuted as well in that chamber, and I just felt that it would have been nice for the repercussions of that to happen. You know, she just seems to be unscathed by that. She's not, doesn't seem to be that injured. It would have been nice perhaps if they kind of built up to a regeneration. So yeah, that's one of my criticisms of the story. I think Romana, Romana 1 doesn't get an exit, which is a shame. And then in the next story, we'll just see her as Lala Ward, which is just random. So yeah, it would have been nice for Mary Tamm to get a regeneration. That's a big flaw for me. The story just kind of ends after they get rid of the key to time and all that. There is that funny scene with the Doctor where he pretends like he's being corrupted by the power of the key to time and like the lust to kind of do anything he wants. He's like, oh, if you can imagine, have all the power in the universe, Romana, or something like that. I don't remember the lines that he says, but that was quite funny. And then he's messing around with her. But there's that great scene at the end where she confronts him in the TARDIS and calls out on him being arrogant and everything, and how she thinks he's just selfish and all that. But so that little argument scene was quite good. But again, yeah, it's just Romana doesn't get an exit. It's Romana 1, doesn't get an exit, and that was really unsatisfying for me. But it's a good story. Although another problem I have with the story is the pacing. The pacing for this story is too slow. The story is too long. It didn't need to be 6 parts. This is why I'm not gonna be disappointed with the 6-parters phasing out now, because sometimes you just don't need 6 parts to tell a story. With this particular story, you don't need 6 parts. It should have been 4 parts, or at the most 5, because there's not really enough conflict. Episode 3 is pointless. Episode 3, literally nothing happens in that part. You could take that entire part out and not miss anything, and watch parts 1 and 2, and then 4, 5, 6, and have it as 5 parts, because you don't need 6 parts. It is too long. I'm sorry. I know I've said this about a lot of the 6-parters, but I'm sorry. Some of them are just too long, and this is one of them. It is too long. But that being said, it's a decent story. It's very entertaining, and I think the production design and set design is very good. I like the costumes as well. Like those earlier parts of the story do actually have a sort of Star Trek vibe. Like when they're in the control room with the Marshal and his men and everything. That did remind me a bit of Star Trek. So, to sum it up, I don't have a lot to say. I mean, I'll say the script by Bob Baker and Dave Martin is good. It's a good script. Just think the pacing needed to be tightened up a bit. And the direction by Michael Hayes is good. And Graham Williams has produced a good story. So with that being said, I am going to give this story a 7 out of 10. It's a decent story. It's decent. It's nothing remarkable. It's nothing special, but I enjoyed it. And it was better than The Invasion of Time, so that's good. Right, so that's it. That is it. That's the end of the Armageddon Factor. And goodbye, Mary Tamm. Thank you very much. You were an amazing companion, and I hope that in your future you had great acting jobs. And I know you're no longer with us. Rest in peace. But thank you to your contribution for the show. So thank you, Mary Tamm. And before I go, as you know the drill by now, 16 seasons in, I am now going to do my mini ranking of the season. Yay! Woo! Mini ranking! And remember, this is just a personal list, purely subjective. You don't have to agree with me, but if you disagree, please be polite down below. Otherwise, I will remove your comments. You have been warned. I'm not saying this is the order you should rank them in. Again, purely subjective. Anyway, let's begin. And to hear my full extended thoughts on each story, watch the reviews. Of course, you would have heard my thoughts on the Armageddon Factor because you would have just watched this video. Okay. I just don't see the point of doing ranking videos for Doctor Who. It's just too time consuming. Anyway, okay, so going from the worst to the best. Number 6, The Power of Kroll. That one wasn't really a surprise, was it? Number 5 is The Armageddon Factor. I still like the story. I still like it. Number 4, The Androids of Tara. Number 3, The Pirate Planet. Number 2, The Rebos Operation. And number 1, The Stones of Blood. So, there we go. That's my ranking of Season 16. What do you think? Please comment down below, let me know. And just to kind of say about Season 16, I think it was a good season. It was an improvement over Season 15. Season 15 was a disappointment. Not completely, but compared to the first 3 seasons, it was a step down. I think Season 16 was a good season. I wouldn't say it was perfect, but it certainly had more good in it than bad, so I'll give it that. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Season 16. What do you think? Please comment down below and let me know. So, next time we begin Season 17, Tom Baker's penultimate season, with Destiny of the Daleks. Yes, woo! Destiny of the Daleks. We haven't seen the Daleks for quite a while, so should be interesting. And it will be our introduction to Romana 2. Yes, Romana has regenerated into Lalla Ward. So Lalla Ward will be permanently joining the TARDIS crew for the next season. Well, the next couple of seasons, I think, because she's in Season 18. But yes, so Destiny of the Daleks next time on Doctor Who Review. So, thank you very much all for watching and listening to me ramble on. So, until next time, I'm Mr. TARDIS 11. See you soon. Bye for now.